Greetings, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Today, we're going to be starting a new series on this channel. And as you could probably already tell based off the thumbnail and the title alone, represents a bit of a tone shift from what I normally discuss. Obviously, still based around One Piece, but we're going to be delving a little bit more into the macabre and grim aspect of the series. Simply put, this is going to be a series where I'm going to sit down and make a video about each of the Straw Hats and if they were to die at the end of the story. As in, Oda legitimately kills off one of the main characters of One Piece. I feel like right at the beginning, I should say that if you are uncomfortable talking about such subject matters, even with fictional characters in a fictional story, because I understand a lot of people identify with these characters and they really like these characters. And in some cases, as in the case with Zoro, who we're going to be talking about today, this has been a character that's been around since the very beginning of One Piece, or just about at the very beginning. So Zoro is a lot of people's favorite One Piece character, and in some minds, probably their favorite anime character, period. And I can understand why talking about your favorite character dying might not be something you're into just as much as you would not be into talking about someone you actually know in real life dying. I mean, a lot of ways it could be viewed as like, I don't even want to go there, you know? So if you are uncomfortable with this, probably stop the video right now. This is probably not a series that you're going to enjoy very much. Why am I doing this now? I feel like because it's nearing the end of One Piece, that gets people thinking about stuff. How the story is going to end. How is the Straw Hat's journey going to end? And every once in a while, you get, especially because, you know, I talk about it online, I get rhetorical questions that are basically, you know, if you had to kill off one of the Straw Hats, which one would you pick? Or if one of the Straw Hats had to die by the end of the story, which one would you select to die? And I've answered those questions, not really thinking much more about it, because I was so confident that Oda would not do that. And to this day, I still don't think that. I still don't think Oda would kill off one of the Straw Hats at the end. If we were in Vegas right now and I was a betting man, I would definitely put money on all of the Straw Hats surviving till the very end, going back to their hometowns, having their tearful reunions with their loved ones, move on to an epilogue, curtain call, the end on one of the greatest epics of our day. Perfect, all right? But you can't be 100% sure. You can only be pretty sure. And that's where I'm at. I'm pretty sure that all the Straw Hats are going to survive, but hey, I'm not the one writing this story. I'm not the one in the driver's seat. Oda could have a plan at the very end. It could have been something planned from the very beginning for all we know. And Oda could be like, you know, the only way the One Piece story will end the way I want it to end is if this person dies. So I decided to sit down and have a serious discussion about it. Today, we're going to be talking about if Zoro dies in One Piece. Out of all of the Straw Hats, Zoro has come closest to death, I think, the most, even more so than Luffy. Zoro has had plenty of close calls in this story where, by all accounts, most people would have considered him to be dead. I mean, like, honestly, if it's revealed that Zoro died a while ago and he's a zombie walking around in some form, yeah, you could kind of see that with him. Most notably, we have the scene at Thriller Bark when Kuma, you know, offered him, he's like, oh, all right, I'll let Luffy live if you take all of his pain and suffering onto yourself. Keep in mind, Zoro, if you do that on top of your already exhausted and injured body, you will most certainly die. Zoro takes all of the pain without even second-guessing it. You know, he understands that the dream of his captain is more so than his own dream, and even more so than his own life. This is something that Zoro has cemented in his character multiple times in the story. He does it again shortly after Thriller Bark during the time skip, or right before the time skip, when he bows down to Mihawk and even admits to putting his own dream on the side if it means Luffy achieving his dream. Zoro understands what it means to be the vice captain of the Straw Hats. He understands what it means to prop up his captain. I wouldn't say he knows this more than the other crew, because they all want Luffy to achieve his dream, and they're all indebted to Luffy for various reasons. But Zoro understands that because of just his position, because he was the first member that Luffy recruited, because he is the vice captain or first mate or whatever you want to call Zoro's position, he has to really exemplify this better than all the other members of the crew, better than Nami, better than Chopper, better than Sanji. He has to be the gold standard here for representing this, for, you know, supporting the captain, to the point where he will lay down his life for Luffy without a second guess. It is for that reason, if we do reach Laugh Tale and some decision has to be made, like some sacrificial, altar exists or something, and it's just like somebody has to die for Luffy to become king of the pirates, for him to achieve his dream. Now, as a little bit of a caveat to that scenario, if Luffy was aware of that, like one of his crew had to die for Luffy to achieve that dream, if Luffy was made aware, he would immediately turn around and leave. He'd be like, oh, that's what we have to do for me to be king of the pirates? One of my crewmates has to die, one of my Nakama? Oh, okay, we're not doing that. All right, everybody, let's go get ice cream. That's how Luffy would go about it. But in a scenario, let's say, like very similar at Thriller Bark, where Luffy was unconscious and he was not made aware of this decision that Zoro made, and still to this day does not know what Zoro did at Thriller Bark, because, of course, as we all know, nothing happened at Thriller Bark. So let's say it's a similar scenario where Luffy is not made aware of this exchange, and Zoro has a price he has to pay. And maybe, in fact, he has already paid this price. Remember that scene back in Wano when he was fighting King right after he wins and he's on the ground and he's kind of fading in and out of consciousness, and he meets the legitimate Grim Reaper? The actual avatar of death looms over Zoro as a haunting specter of the next life. Yeah, that happened. It was never addressed after that. Zoro never says anything about it. Nobody else says anything about it. So, must have just been a funny little scene that Oda drew for no reason, right? Yeah, no. This specter that Zoro saw at Onigashima was not a comical kind of thing that, it was like, oh, it's like Brook instead. A lot of people thought that at the time. Like, he sees the Grim Reaper and Zoro's kind of like, he's hallucinating. He's blurry vision. He's fading in and out from his fight. And then it turns out the Grim Reaper was actually Brook the entire time. And he, like, saves Zoro and gets him to safety or something. That was not what this was. It is of my opinion that Zoro legitimately saw the Grim Reaper. He saw death himself coming for him. I'm going to throw out this scenario here. What if the Grim Reaper approaches Zoro and says, okay, look, man, I overlooked all these other instances, but this is it right here. You took a combination attack from 2 emperors, for God's sake. You broke pretty much every damn bone in your body. Every major organ was ruptured. And you were able to save yourself through some weird mink medicine, but then you immediately fought the giant magma pteranodon dude. All right, Zoro's on the ground and the Grim Reaper's there, and he's like, I can't overlook this shit anymore. All right, it's time to punch your clock. Your number's up. Let's go. What if Zoro legitimately made a deal with death? What if Zoro literally made, I guess not literally made a Faustian deal, because a Faustian deal is with, like, the devil. Death is not the devil, different kind of entities there. But what if it was something similar? What if Zoro literally looked death square in his bony eyes and told him, not yet. I will go with you, but I have to make sure that Luffy achieves his dream first. I have to see this journey through its end. I have to make sure we reach the final island. I have to make sure that my captain reaches Laugh Tale. No matter what the cost. I am willing to fight you right here and now if it means getting a couple of extra, months or whatever on this earth. And what if the Grim Reaper, okay, it's a deal, reaches out the bony hand of death or whatever, just like, whatever. And then Zoro loses consciousness, wakes up later after the fight, Chopper heals him and everything. And maybe Zoro himself doesn't even really remember it, or it's like it's fragmented. He kind of remembers it, but he can't really. Was that a dream? Was that real? I don't know. But here's the thing. Doesn't matter to Zoro. Doesn't matter if it was a dream or if it was reality. Because Zoro would lay down his life for his captain no matter what. So what if they reach the final island and death comes for Zoro? Like, everybody's happy. Everybody rushes in to see what the One Piece really is. And Zoro stays behind, and then death appears over his shoulder, and it's like, it's time. And Zoro's like, he gently goes into that good night. Zoro, at the end of the day, if it was for Luffy, he would die. There's no question about it. So let's say it happens, and Zoro dies. How would the crew respond to that? Let's start with Luffy first. Luffy would have a reaction to this. I mean, if any of the crew dies, obviously he would have a reaction similar to when Ace died. You know, he would have the moment where, like, everything kind of slows down and his, like, breathing shortens, and then he just kind of, like, he basically passes out. That's the reaction I think he would have with most of the Straw Hats. But I feel like Zoro would be a unique example because he was literally the first person that Luffy asked to join the crew. Like, the Straw Hat crew effectively began on the day at Shellstown when Luffy asked Zoro to join, and Zoro said yes. And then they left Shellstown together in that tiny little dinghy, beginning the adventure. And like I said, with all the Straw Hats, this would be the case. But Luffy would have a, I kind of caused this. He would have a sense of guilt here. Like, if I never would have asked him to join our crew, if I never would have met him, then he wouldn't have died now. Luffy, I feel, would feel that sense of crushing guilt over him, okay? Especially if Luffy did put the pieces together. Now, Luffy is not, he's not the smartest tack in the nail box or whatever the hell. But if this happened and Zoro died because of some deal he made or some, like, basically all the things, run up to, like the check has to be cashed by somebody, and it's not going to be cashed by Luffy, Zoro is going to flip the bill on this. He's the one that's going to take care of it, all right? If Luffy ever connects the dots of, like, Zoro died so I may become the king, or Luffy ever figures out what Zoro did at Thriller Bark. Luffy's a goofy kind of guy, but he knows when to be serious, when to be serious. And in fact, a great example of that is at Wano, at the very beginning of Wano, when he met Otama. And Otama talks about Ace and wanting to see him again. And Luffy just kind of looks at Otama right in her eyes and just says, Ace is dead. He's not coming back. The way Luffy deals with trauma is probably not the best. But in this instance, I think it would just come out like massive, just tears flowing on the ground, screaming and crying, just like, I didn't want it this way. It doesn't matter what the One Piece is. It doesn't matter King of the Pirates or whatever. I didn't care. If I knew it was going to result in this payment, I wouldn't have ever done this. You know what I mean? But you also have to look at it from the perspective of Zoro of, like, we're pirates. We did not set out to sea to just have like a childish little, like, to play a game. You know what I mean? Like, this was real. This was a real adventure. This was a real journey. And yes, Luffy, I think, was made aware multiple times that their lives were on the edge of this, Like, I don't think Luffy's stupid enough to go into a battle with two Yonko at Onigashima and think to himself, oh yeah, we'll probably come out all of this perfectly fine. We'll be good. I'm sure Luffy's not going to actively sit around and think, like, some of my crew might die from this. But he's like, this is serious. This is real. And the best way to cement the realness of this would be the death of Zoro. More so than I think any other member of the crew. You have been with me since the very beginning. And Zoro understands what that means to be the first mate. And so he dies, but he also, maybe like his last words to Luffy would be something along the lines of, hey man, this is what you wanted. We all set out to sea. We were doing this for real. You wanted to be king of the pirates. This is not a game. This is not a joke. We were not playing pirate. We were pirates. I am giving up my life so that you can achieve that dream. This was not going to be easy. And here we are. But we all believed in you. Zoro especially believed in Luffy. So here you go. You have it. So honestly, I could see Zoro kind of being like, don't besmirch my memory by saying you never wanted the One Piece. You never wanted to be king of the pirates. All right? Literally, it's what you say at the end of every damn episode, Luffy. Okay? Well, I had to pay the ultimate sacrifice so that you could achieve this. And you should have expected this might have happened. This could have went down this way. So don't say anything like, I don't want the One Piece. I wish it would have never happened. No. Don't let it be like that. You have it now. You have the mantle. You have the title. And all it took was me walking into the next life. There it is. Of course, that wouldn't make it... I might have made it actually a little bit easier for Luffy at that point. Maybe he would be like, yeah, you're right. And actually, that would actually be a really serious moment where Luffy could actually maybe sit down with the rest of the crew and just be like, I've thought about it. I've thought about, each and every one of you dying at some point. You know what I mean? Like it could have happened multiple times, I just never talked about it because it's kind of macabre and grim. Hopefully maybe somebody on YouTube will talk about it and it'll be super awkward for everybody. But here we are, So, I mean, that would be a moment. That would be a hefty moment there. But I'll tell you what, out of all the Straw Hats, I could see Zoro paying that price more than Nami, more than Sanji, more than any of them. And paying it willingly. And paying it at the very end. Okay? And you can't say it wasn't foreshadowed. You couldn't say that something like that was not set up or established way earlier on in the story. This kind of behavior that Zoro exhibits, of sacrificing himself for Luffy, this has occurred multiple times already in the story. Okay? Many times. And him trying to take that burden onto himself. So if that's what it ultimately resulted in, yeah. Actually, by the way, before I forget, I want to also bring that parallel up right here. Roger's crew. Roger, the captain. Rayleigh, the vice captain. Roger dies, gives himself over, sacrifices himself, as it were. Rayleigh continues on the legacy. Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy, captain. Zoro, vice captain. Reversed. Luffy, the captain, lives on as king of the pirates. Zoro, the vice captain, pays that sacrifice. Just throwing it out there. How would Sanji react to this? I'm not going to go through every single member of the Straw Hats, because I'd have to do that for every single video. Like, how would Chopper respond to Zoro's death? How would Robin respond to Zoro's death? How would Frankie respond to Zoro's death? I'm not going to do that with each and every Straw Hat. But I will do that with Straw Hats where it's relevant. And with Sanji, I feel like that's really relevant because, they have their sort of rivalry there, but they still, they view each other as the same member of the crew as Nakama. It's more of like a sibling rivalry kind of situation, right? But make no mistake, if Zoro were to die, actually die, Sanji would be devastated. Sanji would be devastated. He might take it out in rage at first. You stupid Moss head, something like that. But at the end of the day, he would feel very upset. And remember the scene at Thriller Bark when Zoro was about to offer himself to Kuma, Sanji appears and he's like, hey, no. Luffy needs to survive, and so do you, so I'm going to be the one to offer myself. So Sanji would, and we'll cover this when we get to Sanji's video, but Sanji would have given his life for Luffy just as well as Zoro would, and a lot of the other Straw Hats would as well. Like, I don't want to paint the picture that the only people that would sacrifice themselves for Luffy's goal is Zoro and Sanji, and that's it. Nami would, Usopp would, Chopper would. I'm just saying that, there's a hierarchy in the crew. There's sort of a position here, and that's why Zoro knocked Sanji's ass out at Thriller Bark and said, hey, no, you get down. This is my job. I'm the vice captain. I'm the one that does this, okay? I'm the one that has to handle this. It's not on you. It's on me, all right? Because that's the way it is. That's the way the crew is structured. I was the first one he asked, so that's my job, okay? So Sanji, though, despite knowing Zoro's viewpoints on the matter, would still be like, it should have been me. Sanji would be like, it should have been me. I should have been the one to give of myself, so then Zoro could have still be alive, and then because Luffy's going to need Zoro or whatever. But that might cause Sanji to step up a bit and might be like, okay, well, Zoro's gone now. Luffy still needs people to support him, though, so I'm going to stick around. Something like that, you know? All the Straw Hats. Actually, oh, wow, I didn't even think of that angle with it. Let's say all the Straw Hats were together, right? You know, none of them die. End of the story. Luffy might be like, okay, everybody, we all made it through. Disband the crew. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if it's like, now that Zoro's gone, the crew should stay together now more than ever? Sanji, of course, had the scene with Zoro at Wano where he was like, hey, when he was afraid of like turning into a member of the Jerma like his brothers, he was like, hey, Zoro, if things don't work out, then I want you to end it, okay? And Zoro, without even a second thought, is like, yeah, sure. Now, you could say that like Zoro and Sanji, they have that rivalry, that back and forth. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, sure, I'll be the one to end you personally, of course. You know, ha ha ha. It's funny. No, it's Sanji came to Zoro with a very serious request, and then Zoro responded in kind, just very seriously. It's like, okay, all right, yeah. If you become somebody you're not, and if you want me to do that, then that's my duty. I will do that. Because they are friends. They are friends. They are, okay? And also, also in Wano, we had the moment where they were like, oh, we are the wings. Luffy's going to become the Pirate King, and then we were the right and left arms that are going to get him there. Or I guess Zoro would be the right arm, Sanji would be the right leg in that instance. You know, we will get him there. Or as we're the wings of the Pirate King, as it is. Okay, so that's the implication, right? You have Luffy becoming the Pirate King, Sanji and Zoro. So when it comes down to it, they are the monster trio. Sanji was not the third person to join, or I guess the second person to join if you don't count Luffy. So it goes, Zoro, and then it was Nami, and then Usopp, and then Sanji. But at the end of the day, it comes down to Zoro and Sanji representing the wings of the Pirate King. They will be the ones. And if it came down to it where 2 Straw Hats had to die, I know we're getting really intense with this here, but if it came down to it and 2 of them had to die, it would be Zoro and Sanji if that meant Luffy achieving his dreams. And they would do that, no questions asked. Where would Zoro be buried? Where would his last resting place be? I feel like there would be no better place for it to be than back at Shimosuke Village, right next to the grave of Kuina. I mean, that's just the perfect place for him to be buried, honestly. Or if you want to go about it like, they used to train in a particular area, so they'll be like he's laid to rest there. But we've actually seen Kuina's grave in the story, in the cover series. It's in just like a cemetery, I think, unless she's not actually buried there and it turns out she's still alive or whatever. But Zoro returning, next to his best friend, right? And along with that line, Zoro's probably last thoughts as he was about to die, he would be thinking, just like as in his fight with King, he's like, I made a promise to my captain and my best friend. Now, a lot of people have taken that line to mean like Luffy is his captain, but is also his best friend. I took it to mean that he means Luffy, his captain, and Kuina, his best friend. So Kuina and Luffy are both the driving forces in Zoro's mind for a lot of his long-term goals, okay? He has basically 2 dreams. One, to make Luffy king of the pirates to achieve his dream, and then his own dream, his personal dream of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world, okay? So I imagine as he's fading out, he would be happy that one of his dreams has been achieved, and that was the dream that became his real dream. His first and foremost dream in the world was to make Luffy king of the pirates, and he achieved that. But as he would be dying, as he lays dying, he would also think about his friend Kuina. And you could even imagine, like, as he's fading out, as the Grim Reaper carries him off into the underworld, maybe you could even see, like, an image of Kuina appear next to him or something and just be like, Zoro kind of apologizing to her. Like, I'm sorry I couldn't achieve our dream, to become the greatest swordsman in the world. And Kuina would probably be like, it's okay. You vastly surpassed any kind of expectation. You are the greatest swordsman in the world, Zoro, and you also helped out your captain, so let's go. The funeral for Zoro. Yeah, we're going all in on this. Yeah, we're going all in on this. Funeral for Zoro, right? You have the moment where who's going to be there? Obviously the Straw Hats, but also like Mihawk. Mihawk, I feel like, would be there. Perona would definitely be there. Obviously, if it takes place at the village, you would have Koshiro. He would be there. All the students in the village would be there as well. And Tashigi, Smoker, they would, of course, attend. Tashigi would be really upset about it, honestly. Maybe she never told Zoro how she really feels about him or something like that. Mihawk, seeing Mihawk there would be really, like, heavy. You know what I mean? Like, Mihawk there is, like, looking down at Zoro's body and thinking to himself, like, this is the man that literally had the potential to surpass me. And now he's gone. And now this is now the second time in Mihawk's life he's had to, like, he was fighting Shanks, worthy opponent. And then Shanks loses an arm, so no longer a worthy opponent. And then he has Zoro, who he sees kind of like a glimmer of hope. Way back at the Baratier, Mihawk was like, this is the man that could maybe surpass me someday. He just has to get stronger. And then he personally trains him during the time skip. And he's like, he's going to be the one to surpass me. He's going to do this. And he's all ready to pass the mantle on to him. And then, have one final battle with Zoro. And then he becomes the greatest swordsman in the world. Whatever. Gives Yoru over to Zoro or something like that. And then Zoro dies before that could happen. I could see Zoro I could see Mihawk at the funeral next to Perona and everybody. Very somber, very stoic as he normally is. But then I could see him, like, walking away from the crowd and just looking out over the sea. And then, like a single tear falls down Mihawk's face. And then he just leaves, Rather inconsiderate point to make at this moment in the video. But who gets Zoro's swords? I mean, like, it's a legitimate question, right? I mean, we have Enma, who's like the greatest sword of all time, forged by Kozaburo Shimosuke, and then we have the Wado, and then we have the Sandai, like who gets Zoro's swords? I mean, it's going to be a little bit more somber than this. This isn't like a D&D campaign where we, like, One Piece D&D is like, all right, who gets the swords? It's just like, all right, well, let's divvy them up, you know what I mean? But no, seriously, okay. Well, the Wado would go back to Koshiro. Easily. Probably the Enma would as well, since the Enma was forged by his father, Kozaburo, was Koshiro's father. So Enma and Wado were both forged by the same guy. Would probably just go back to the dojo. The custom in Wano, specifically in the Ringo region, is that when you are buried, your sword that you use throughout your life becomes your grave marker. So the Wado Ichimonji becoming Zoro's grave marker, and Kuina's as well, I guess, if they were buried next to each other, is kind of very fitting, since Kuina had the blade ever since she was a kid, and then she died, and then it got passed to Zoro. So them both having gravestones next to each other, with, like, sharing the Wado Ichimonji between them, that actually is very fitting. Enma, I feel, would go back to Koshiro. Maybe Enma would make a journey to Wano. But, it's his father that made the thing, so I imagine he would keep it unless he wants it to be in the hands of, like, Sukiyake or Momonosuke, like, to keep it in that land. So maybe Koshiro makes a journey back to the land of Wano and presents it to the shogun and be like, this was forged by my father, Kozaburo Shimosuke. However, it was forged as a gift for Oden Kozuki. He was the one that was supposed to have it. So Zoro is now gone. I am returning this blade to you, Shogun Momonosuke. And so Momonosuke now has Ame no Habakiri and Enma, just as Oden, his father, had both of them. So you could kind of see it like that too. That's kind of like that's sort of like a full circle kind of thing. And as for the Sandai, kind of the same thing with the Sandai Kitetsu here. Forged by Tenguyama Hitetsu, who we later find out is actually, Sukiyaki Kozuki, who is Oden's father. So in that regard, I could see Koshiro returning at least the Sandai to Sukiyaki. Be like, this is the sword that you originally forged. It ended up in the East Blue by happen chance over the years. We still don't really know the whole story behind that. Probably one of the people that left Wano had the sword, and then the sword ended up at Ippon Matsu's shop. I don't think it would go back to Ippon Matsu. I don't think Ippon Matsu wants the Sandai again. But you probably return it to Sukiyaki and give it to him. So best case scenario, the Wado would be the grave marker for Zoro and Kuina. The Sandai would be returned to Sukiyaki and alongside the Nidai Kitetsu, so he would have both. And then Enma would be returned to Momonosuke, or just kept in the dojo, one of the two. But yeah, that's what happens with the swords. As for his legacy, you can imagine there's going to be a big-ass Zoro statue at Shimosuke Village. There's going to be a really cool, like, there's going to be a grave marker for Zoro himself next to Kuina, but, like, somewhere in the village, there's going to be a really cool statue, and it's going to be of Zoro, and I want him to be in the exact same pose he was in at Little Garden with the cake. with the wax cake thing that they did, Mr. 3 and everybody. So he's like holding out his sword like this. I want that to be the statue. I want that to be the permanent memorial to Roronoa Zoro and all of his legacy and his memory. And I could see the Straw Hats. It's kind of similar to like Sabo visiting Ace's grave and Whitebeard's grave and pouring like the sake cups. I could see every once in a while the Straw Hats will come to Shimosuke Village, maybe on the anniversary or around it, and pour out a bottle of sake for Zoro, as he loves his sake, right? And so Luffy, though, would take that position now as King of the Pirates more seriously than he ever would have before, because there was a price that had to be paid to reach it. It wasn't just like, oh, I want to be King of the Pirates. Okay, everybody, let's get together on our ship and let's travel. Oh, we're having all these fun, wacky adventures. Okay, we finally reached the end. All right, I became King of the Pirates. All my friends are here. Everything's perfect. But now that somebody died, Luffy's going to take that title of King of the Pirates seriously. Not to say he wouldn't have taken it seriously beforehand, but he's going to take it very seriously now. He's going to understand the weight and the scope of what this means to be King of the Pirates and what had to be paid in order for him to reach that, to get to the top of that throne, okay? And Luffy's going to maintain that position of power. I mean, that's really what it is, King of the Pirates, okay? And he's going to make sure that Zoro's death was not in vain for that reason. Of course, people died along the way. Ace died along the way. The Mary was burned along the way. So it's not all fun and adventures and wacky stuff and everything like that. But I feel like, yeah, reaching the final island and then finding out one of your crewmates dies, one of your Nakama, you reach the final point, and it's just like that has to happen. That would hit really home in a different way, okay? So, how did that go? Are you still having a good day? I'm not sure. We'll see how this pans out, I guess. If the reaction of this video is, I don't know if positive is the right word to say, but if it's like, make more of these, I guess we will. But if it feels off, if it's just not right, like if it's like a lot of people are like, hey, Tekking, this was a really kind of, we don't want you talking about this kind of stuff. It's a little bit too grim. Let's move back to the fun One Piece stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, then maybe I'll just shelve this and just put it back on a thing. But, the idea was to make the whole series. So we'll see how this one goes, and we'll go from there. But thanks for watching the video, I suppose. Yeah, with that being said, Tekking signing out.